Shimano has finally gone fully wireless. This is the brand new GRX Di2 group set, the first ever wireless group set for drop bar bikes. But here's the question, is it a breakthrough we've all been waiting for, or is it outdated the moment it launched? To find out, I put a new group set to the ultimate test, over 800 brutal kilometers across the deserts and mountains of Spain in an unsupported bikepacking race called Badlands. So did it survive? Does it live up to the hype? And is it finally a match for SRAM's AXA group set? In today's review, go through all the key features of the group set, ergonomics, shifting performance, battery, pros and cons, and my verdict at the end of the video. So let's dive in. In a nutshell, the pros and cons based on my testing go like this. In the pro column, we have very fast shifting, the same ergonomics as previous GRX, mix and match to hit different price points, wide gear range, and backwards compatibility. But on the cons side, there's no 2x option, there's no short cranks, no power meter option, and a bulky and ugly rear derailleur design, and still uses a flimsy mech hanger. The new group set isn't really a group set, it's just a rear derailleur. The rest of the components are existing GRX Di2. That means it's fully backwards compatible, and because Shimano hasn't yet embraced a UDH design like SRAM, it'll fit older frames just fine, and that's definitely a good thing. No need to buy a new frame to embrace a new group set. And being wireless, the internal frame battery has now gone, and the battery is housed instead inside the main body of the rear derailleur underneath a plastic cover. But I have to say, in my opinion, it looks ugly and bulky compared to previous GRX Di2 and SRAM Explore, which in my opinion looks so much more modern and sleek and well designed. Derailleurs generally are getting bigger and bigger due to electronics and batteries and bigger cassettes, but it feels like Shimano didn't really try very hard with this one at all. It looks even worse alongside the XTR mountain bike derailleur, which is also wireless and essentially the same design as we have here, but with much better looks and appearance. So I can see quite a few people choosing XTR for the way it looks. I know I would 100%. To put a group set through its paces, I built a custom build around a 51 Assassin carbon gravel bike, MV wheels and MV cockpit. And while I'm definitely no pro bike mechanic at all, it was a breeze to build. The hardest part was getting the brake hose through the fork. I followed Shimano's instructions for setting up the group set and the rear derailleur and achieved perfect shifting straight away. The cassette does require a micro spline free hub body, not the older HG design, but they are readily available for most wheel sets on the market, like these MV wheels I use for my testing. Your gearing options with a new group set are pretty limited, it has to be said, and I paired a smaller chainring available, a 40 tooth up front, with the only cassette available, a 1051, which is also a mountain bike cassette as well, the same technology. There's no new cassette for GRX. This combo provides a 510% range, so very generous, with 2-tooth gear jumps from a 10 up to the 18 sprocket, then increasing jumps up to the 51, so fairly smooth progression. And it is a good gear range that mostly works pretty well. I found myself during Badlands able to crawl up the steepest climbs, but on a few occasions, largely because my bike was laden with weight from all my food and stuff I needed, I wished for lower gears. So a 38-tooth chainset might have been a good choice, but I don't make one sadly. Riding the bike around my local trails with no extra weight on it at all, and the gear range feels pretty spot on. And it is a setup that gives a bigger range than SRAM's Explore, which is 460%, but that cassette has the benefit of 1-tooth increments from a 10 up to the 15, then 2-tooth jumps from the 15 to the 21. That difference may be small on paper, but in the real world, in my experience riding both group sets side by side, SRAM Explore makes it easier to maintain a consistent cadence on varied terrain and when riding flat out in a group. And it's worth adding here, of course, that SRAM does offer the use of a 1052 cassette with their mountain bike mullet setup. The mix and match ability of their AXA system is a real bonus. I'm referring to SRAM Explore as it's a dedicated gravel group set, which is one also is, and making comparisons which I think are fairly relevant if you are in the market for choosing a new gravel bike or a gravel group set. It might be between GRX or SRAM Explore. So what's a group set like to use? Well, honestly, my first impressions riding a bike were pretty underwhelming because it just feels the same as regular GRX Di2, but with no wires attached. A lot of the early reviews talked about how fast the shifting speed is, and it is definitely quick. In the work stand, it's definitely quicker than SRAM Explore, but I wouldn't describe either group set as being slow when you press a shift button and command a change of gear out there in the real world. And the more you ride both group sets or either group sets, the more you get used to the speed it offers. You ride SRAM for a month and it feels normal. Ride GRX for a month and that feels normal too. It's only when going back and forth can you feel the difference, and the difference is pretty small, it has to be said. But if you want the fastest shifting, Shimano probably wins that battle. But that said, one difference in my testing is how SRAM offers more reliable shifting, as in it never misses a gear change at all. In some situations, some particular scenarios, Shimano will sometimes feel a bit less smooth with some gear changes. Not enough to ruin the experience, but definitely feels like the gear change hasn't been as optimal as it could be, and doesn't feel quite as locked in and seamless as SRAM. So SRAM might be a bit slower, a tiny hint slower, but every gear change is perfect, while Shimano is quicker, but sometimes the gear change isn't the most perfect in the world. When it comes to ergonomics, the hoods are the same as current GRX Di2, and the ergonomics are good, with a tall knob angled back towards you, an angled brake lever too, and a higher pivot for better braking in the drops and the hoods. But I'm not really a fan of the ribbing on the top of the hoods, which can tear your hands apart if you ride with no gloves, as I like to do when it's warm enough to ride with no gloves. But that aside, the shape of the hood with a sort of hook does make for a secure feeling when bombing down a rough and fast descent, and definitely feels more secure when you are clamping around the hoods than the Shimano road version of the same system. The brakes are strong and powerful with no noise or fade, but the lever action is nowhere near as light as the latest SRAM Explore offering. I found SRAM makes it easier, and I feel more confident riding down chunky, fast terrain with easier 1 or 2 finger braking with SRAM on the hood or in the drops. Going between SRAM and Shimano, the Shimano brakes, they're fantastic. We all know how good they are, but brake levers have a bit more resistance than SRAM, which is super light, and that might not feel like much difference in the work stand or in the bike shop, but when you're riding down a bumpy trail, it makes a big difference. As you well know, SRAM Explore has done away completely with a mech hanger and uses a full mount interface, and I'm a big fan. I've been very impressed over the last year. I've had no issues at all. No broken frames and no mech hangers to straighten or replace, and the gears work smoothly all the time. Even after crashing, they still work extremely well. And this is where I personally think Shimano has a big problem, because they still rely on a mech hanger, and I don't think that's the right move. I crashed on the final descent of Badlands at very low speeds because of my Sherman neck, and the bike landed fully on the rear derailleur and bent the hanger and threw the shifting out of whack for the final descent. If that happened earlier on in my Badlands experience, it could have ruined my whole experience and required some maintenance by the side of the trail. There is a crash mode on the rear derailleur designed to move the rear mechanism out of the way to recover after a crash, but it didn't work in this situation. Luckily it happened right at the end and it wasn't an issue, but it does highlight the difference between SRAM's approach and Shimano's approach, and for me, SRAM's approach feels more modern and feels like the right setup, the right approach for a gravel bike designed to be tough and burly when riding off-road and doing unsupported bikepacking races. Let's talk about runtime, and despite that move from the big internal frame battery to a small battery in the rear derailleur, they're claiming the same runtime as Di2, between 700 and 1,000 kilometers of use, depending on how much you change gear, of course. So for Badlands, I had one battery and the race was 815 kilometers long, and it ran out at 810 kilometers. It ran out in the last 5 kilometers, a nice gentle downhill into Granada for the finish line. So very lucky that it lasted pretty much the entire race because I had no spare battery. The group set arrived the week before the race. I had no time to source a spare battery. I carried a charger with me just in case, but luckily it wasn't needed. So 800 kilometers thereabouts in my real world use, and using gears all the time, I made no effort to conserve the battery at all. So very impressive for such a small battery. As good as a new group set might be, there are limitations. For starters, it's 1x only. If you want 2x for gravel, it's either mechanical or Di2 wide. I imagine it's on the plan, but when it happens, if it happens, well, I've no idea. So right now, it's 1x only, which may be a limitation for you depending on your preference for 1x versus 2x. Let's talk money, and the high street price for the new group set for everything you need, barring the bottom bracket, is £1,400 or €1,500. Compared to SRAM Force Explore, that's €1,600 or £1,750. So Shimano wins the price battle here. So not much in it, but yeah, Shimano is cheaper. You can save money by speccing lower level components because there are 3 tiers of GRX to choose from. So low level cranks if you want, and a low level mountain bike cassette as well. So some option to customize the build to meet your price point and requirements. You can do that with SRAM as well. You go for rival cranks and different parts and get the price and the build you want. One key point of difference worth sharing though is that Shimano only offers down to 170mm cranks, while SRAM goes down to 160 and 165. So you want short cranks, SRAM is the option for you. In summary, the new wireless GRX does work well with fast shifting, wide gear range, good runtime, and an easily replaceable battery, but it still doesn't feel like a fully baked, dedicated gravel bike group set that can really compete with SRAM's Explore offering. And it does seem rather pointless, in my opinion, upgrading from regular wide Di2 GRX, as once built, there's no real tangible benefit having a battery you can whip out and replace during a long distance bikepacking race. And for me, the looks of that rear derailleur are pretty awful too. So, if you are buying a new group set or a new gravel bike and wandering between Shimano and SRAM, well, my money, personally, would go on SRAM. It's better looking, it's more robust, there are more gearing options with a 1046 cassette that in my mind is perfectly matched to fast gravel riding and racing, and you have the mullet option for a 1052 mountain bike hybrid as well. Better brakes, lighter brake lever action, and better ergonomics and wireless blips, and you have a power meter as well. And for that reason, I would only consider this group set if you are a Shimano fan, upgrading an older Shimano group set, or you have an older frame without UDH. But if you are buying a whole new group set or a brand new gravel bike, my money, personally, would go on something with SRAM Explore. And with 3 versions to choose from, Rival, Force and Red, there's an option for most people and most budgets. And you watch my full review of the SRAM Explore group set by watching this video right up here. And if you've got any questions about the group set that I haven't answered in today's review, then feel free to drop a comment down below.